Growing up, there was a silent but universally understood rule in our household. Whatever Morgan wanted, Morgan got, and if Morgan couldn't have it, nobody else was allowed to have it either. I am 27 years old, and for as long as I can remember, my older sister Morgan, who is now 32, has operated under the delusion that the universe was meticulously designed to cater exclusively to her desires. My parents, bless their hearts, were the architects of this delusion. They are non-confrontational to a fault, terrified of Morgan's legendary, earth-shattering tantrums that could rattle the windows and sour the milk. Instead of disciplining her, they appeased her. They paved her path with gold and taught her that her emotions were the absolute center of our family's solar system. I, on the other hand, was the easy child, the quiet one, the one who needed less maintenance, which inevitably translated to the one who received less attention. I didn't mind the lack of attention, really. What I minded was the collateral damage of Morgan's unchecked narcissism. Morgan is the type of person who views every interaction as a competition and every success of another as a direct, personal insult to her very existence. If I got a good grade, she suddenly had a mysterious illness that required my parents to rush her to a specialist, eclipsing my achievement. If I made the cheerleading squad, she would accidentally spill grape juice on my uniform the morning of the first game. The accidents were always her specialty. The "I'm so sorry, I'm just so clumsy," accompanied by wide, innocent eyes that fooled my parents but never fooled me. I learned early on that my sister harbored a deep, venomous jealousy toward me, a jealousy that metastasized as we grew older. You see, Morgan had a rigid timeline for her life. She was supposed to graduate college, land a high-paying, glamorous job, marry a wealthy, incredibly handsome man by 25, and have 2 perfect children by 30. None of that happened. She drifted through 3 different majors, currently works a mid-level administrative job she despises, and her romantic life has been a revolving door of toxic relationships that inevitably end in dramatic, screaming matches in public restaurants. Every failed relationship only fueled her bitterness. As she crossed the threshold of 30, single and increasingly resentful, her jealousy mutated into outright hostility. Then came my turn. I met Mark when I was 23. Mark is the kindest, most patient, and most deeply grounding human being I have ever encountered. He is a high school history teacher who loves hiking, bad puns, and, inexplicably, me. Our relationship wasn't built on the chaotic drama Morgan craved. It was built on quiet Sunday mornings, shared laughter over burnt toast, and a profound, unshakable mutual respect. When we had been dating for 3 years, Mark proposed. He didn't do it at a fancy restaurant with a flash mob. He did it on a quiet Tuesday evening in our cramped apartment, getting down on one knee while we were in our pajamas, surrounded by the scent of the lasagna we had just pulled from the oven. It was the most perfect moment of my life. The night we went to my parents' house to announce the engagement is etched into my memory with the clarity of a traumatic flashback. We sat around the dining room table, the remains of a roast chicken on the platter between us. When I held up my hand, the modest but beautiful diamond catching the light of the chandelier, my mother gasped and my father beamed. Morgan, however, stopped dead. Her fork clattered onto her plate with a sharp, piercing sound. I watched the blood literally drain from her face, leaving her pale and trembling. Her eyes, normally a dull hazel, flashed with a terrifying, primal rage. She stared at the ring as if it were a venomous spider crawling up my finger. "You're getting married?" she whispered, her voice tight, strangled by her own disbelief. "You?" "Yes," I said, my smile faltering slightly under the weight of her glare. "Mark asked me on Tuesday." Morgan didn't offer congratulations. She didn't smile. She abruptly pushed her chair back from the table, the wood screeching against the floorboards, and stormed out of the room without another word. We heard the front door slam so hard the pictures on the hallway walls rattled. My mother immediately went into damage control mode, offering frantic, nonsensical excuses. "She's just surprised, sweetie. You know she's been feeling a bit down about her own love life lately. Just give her time. Don't let this ruin your night." But I knew the truth. Morgan wasn't just surprised, she was fundamentally, violently offended. In her twisted worldview, the younger sister was absolutely, under no circumstances, supposed to get married before the older sister. It was a violation of the natural order. It was a humiliation she could not bear. From that night onward, Morgan made it her life's mission to suck the joy out of every single aspect of my wedding planning. If I showed my mother a venue I liked, Morgan would scoff and say it looked like a converted barn for farm animals. If I discussed catering options, she would loudly proclaim that chicken was too dry and fish was too risky, implying my guests would be poisoned. But all her snide remarks and passive-aggressive jabs were just background noise compared to the main event. The dress. I had been saving for my wedding dress since I was 20 years old. Long before I even met Mark, I had a specific savings account designated purely for my dream gown. I worked double shifts at a diner during college, took on freelance graphic design gigs late into the night, and skipped vacations and expensive dinners, funneling every spare dollar into that account. I didn't care about a massive, extravagant wedding with a 6-tier cake or a horse-drawn carriage. I only cared about the dress. I wanted a custom-made, pure silk masterpiece, and I found it. Or rather, I had it created. I found an incredible, independent bridal designer in the city who worked with me to sketch out my exact vision. It was a breathtaking, A-line silhouette made from the most luxurious, heavy ivory silk imported from Italy. It had a delicate sweetheart neckline, an intricate, hand-beaded lace bodice that took weeks to complete, and a sweeping, dramatic train that moved like liquid glass when I walked. It was a work of art. It was flawless. And it cost exactly $10,000. When I finally paid the balance and brought the garment bag home, clutching the original, itemized $10,000 receipt in my hand, I felt a sense of accomplishment that brought tears to my eyes. This dress represented years of hard work, discipline, and a dream finally coming to fruition. I hung it carefully in the back of my childhood bedroom closet at my parents' house, where I was staying for the final 2 weeks leading up to the wedding, to help my mom with the localized preparations. Mark was staying at our apartment across town. That first evening, as I was sitting on my bed reviewing the seating chart, Morgan walked past my open door. She paused, her eyes darting to the thick, opaque white garment bag hanging in the closet. I saw the way her gaze lingered on it. I saw the slight twitch of her jaw, the narrowing of her eyes. It was the same look she had given my high school prom dress 3 days before she, accidentally, dropped a burning curling iron directly onto the chiffon skirt, burning a hole the size of a grapefruit right through the front. It was the same look she gave my brand new college laptop before she tripped and spilled a venti iced coffee into the keyboard, frying the motherboard instantly. A cold, heavy knot of pure dread formed in the pit of my stomach. My breathing grew shallow. A sudden, terrifying realization washed over me. Morgan was going to destroy my wedding dress. I didn't have proof. I didn't have a threat I could report. But I knew my sister. I knew the rhythm of her malice. I knew the depths of her petty, vindictive jealousy. The closer the wedding got, the more erratic and irritable she had become. The thought of me walking down the aisle, the center of attention, radiant and happy in a $10,000 custom gown, while she sat in a pew, unmarried and furious, was driving her to the brink of insanity. She wouldn't be able to help herself. It was almost a biological imperative for her to ruin it. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through 100 different disastrous scenarios. If I accused her now, my parents would call me paranoid and dramatic, turning me into the villain. If I moved the dress suddenly, Morgan would know I suspected her, which might provoke her to find another way to sabotage the wedding. I needed a plan. I needed a way to protect my dream dress while simultaneously exposing Morgan for the monster she truly was, once and for all. The next morning, I called my maid of honor, Sarah, and told her everything. Sarah, unlike my parents, had witnessed Morgan's reign of terror firsthand since we were in middle school. She didn't hesitate for a single second. "She's absolutely going to try to ruin it," Sarah said over the phone, her voice dead serious. "We need to get the real dress out of there immediately. My parents are in Europe for the next month. Their apartment is completely empty, and it's practically a fortress. Doorman, keycard access, security cameras in the hallway. We'll take the real dress there tonight. But Ileana, if she goes into your closet and finds it missing, she's going to flip out and ruin something else. The cake, The flowers, your passport for the honeymoon. She needs a target. Sarah was right. Morgan needed a target, and I was going to give her one. That afternoon, I scoured Amazon. I typed in A-line sweetheart lace wedding dress. I sorted by price, low to high. Within 10 minutes I found it. A visually similar dress that, from a distance of 10 feet or in a dimly lit closet, vaguely resembled the silhouette of my custom gown. It was made of 100% cheap, shiny polyester. The lace was stiff, machine-cut scratchy plastic. It cost exactly $49.99 with free overnight shipping. I added it to my cart and clicked buy. When the package arrived the next day, I snuck it into my room. While my mother and Morgan were downstairs arguing about the floral arrangements, I carefully unzipped the heavy, opaque garment bag holding my $10,000 silk masterpiece. I gently transferred the real dress into a plain, nondescript black garment bag. Then, I took the $50 synthetic monstrosity out of its plastic shipping wrapper, shook out the deep, unironable creases, and hung it precisely where the real dress had been, zipping the fancy white bridal boutique bag over it. That night, under the cover of darkness, Sarah pulled her car up to the side door of my parents' house. I snuck out down the back stairs, clutching the black bag containing my real dress as if it were a newborn baby. We drove in absolute silence to Sarah's parents' heavily secured, luxury apartment building. We rode the elevator up to the penthouse level, unlocked the door, and hung my beautiful, flawless silk gown in the master bedroom closet. I locked the closet door, locked the bedroom door, and locked the front door of the apartment. I kept the only key on a chain around my neck, hidden beneath my shirt. My real dress was safe, but my plan wasn't finished. I didn't just want to protect my dress. I wanted to catch Morgan red-handed. I was tired of the gaslighting. I was tired of my parents making excuses for her clumsiness. I wanted undeniable, high-definition proof of her malicious intent. I went to a local electronics store and purchased a high-end, motion-activated, 4K Wi-Fi hidden camera disguised as a standard digital alarm clock. I set it up on the top shelf of my closet, angled perfectly downward to capture a crystal-clear, wide-angle view of the white garment bag and anyone who approached it. I synced the camera to a hidden app on my phone, ensuring that any motion detected would immediately send a silent alert and a live video feed directly to my screen. For the next 10 days, the tension in my parents' house was thick enough to cut with a chainsaw. The wedding was fast approaching, and Morgan was pacing the hallways like a caged, rabid animal. She snapped at everyone. She criticized the bridesmaids' dresses, claiming the color made everyone look jaundiced. She accidentally knocked over a stack of finalized wedding invitations, spilling a mug of black coffee entirely over them. Luckily, I had anticipated that too, and the stack she ruined were misprints I had left out as bait, while the real ones had been safely mailed a week prior. I played my part perfectly. I acted stressed, protective, and constantly nervous about my room. I made a big show of keeping my bedroom door shut. I would occasionally mention how terrified I was of anything happening to my $10,000 custom gown. I dropped the price tag into conversation whenever I knew Morgan was within earshot, watching out of the corner of my eye as her face tightened with sheer, unadulterated rage at the exorbitant sum. I was fueling her fire, guiding her exactly where I wanted her to go. Then came the day before the wedding. Friday. The rehearsal dinner was scheduled for 7:00 p.m. that evening at a beautiful Italian restaurant downtown. The morning was entirely booked with appointments. I, along with Sarah and my mother, had hair and makeup trials at a salon across town, followed by a final walkthrough at the venue. Morgan had vehemently refused to attend the salon trip, claiming she had a migraine and needed to rest at the house. My mother, ever the enabler, cooed over her and told her to stay in bed, promising we would be quiet when we left. As I walked out of the front door with my mother and Sarah, I intentionally left my bedroom door open just a crack. It was the invitation she had been waiting for. At 11:45 a.m., I was sitting in the salon chair, foils in my hair, laughing at a joke Sarah had just made, when I felt the familiar sharp buzz of my phone vibrating in my lap. I looked down. The notification on my screen read, "Motion DTCTD closet camera." My heart hammered in my chest. This was it, the moment of truth. I excused myself from the conversation, telling my stylist I needed to use the restroom. I walked into the small, private bathroom at the back of the salon, locked the door, and opened the app. The live feed buffered for a split second before the crystal-clear 4K video populated the screen. There she was. Morgan stood in the center of my closet. The dim lighting overhead cast long, sinister shadows across her face. She wasn't wearing the expression of someone suffering from a migraine. She looked feverish, her eyes wide and manic, a twisted, grotesque smirk playing on her lips. In her right hand, she clutched a pair of heavy, stainless steel fabric shears she must have taken from my mother's sewing kit. In her left hand, she held a large, industrial-sized jug of Clorox bleach she had brought up from the laundry room. I held my breath, watching the screen as if mesmerized by a horror movie. Morgan didn't hesitate. She didn't look remorseful. She moved with ruthless, calculated efficiency. She unzipped the white bridal bag, exposing the cheap, synthetic replica dress. She didn't even pause to examine the fabric. Her rage blinded her to the fact that she was looking at $50 polyester instead of $10,000 silk. All she saw was the symbol of my happiness, and she wanted to obliterate it. She raised the shears and plunged them into the bodice of the dress. The microphone on the camera was incredibly sensitive. I could hear the harsh, tearing sound of the cheap fabric ripping as she brutally sawed the scissors through the neckline, carving huge, jagged gouges into the fake lace. She yanked the fabric apart, her breath coming in heavy, excited pants. She slashed the sleeves. She hacked at the skirt, shredding the bottom half of the dress into ribbons. She was panting, a look of pure, unhinged euphoria on her face as she destroyed what she thought was my most prized possession. When the dress was nothing more than a mangled, unrecognizable ruin hanging from a plastic hanger, Morgan took a step back. She dropped the scissors onto the floor with a loud clatter. Then, she unscrewed the cap of the bleach jug. She hoisted the heavy bottle and began to pour. The thick, toxic-smelling liquid splashed violently over the shredded remains of the bodice, soaking into the polyester and cascading down the skirt, pooling in a noxious puddle on the closet floor. She emptied half the gallon onto the dress, ensuring every single inch was thoroughly saturated, ruined beyond any conceivable repair. Finally, she stopped. She stood back and admired her handiwork. She let out a short, breathy laugh, a sound so chilling, so devoid of empathy, that it made the hairs on my arms stand up. She tossed the empty bleach cap onto the pile of shredded fabric, turned on her heel, and walked out of the frame. I sat in the salon bathroom for 5 full minutes, staring at the frozen frame of the destroyed, bleach-soaked decoy. I didn't cry. I didn't feel a single ounce of sorrow. What I felt was a profound, icy calm. A wave of absolute vindication washed over me. For 27 years, she had played the victim while secretly acting as the executioner. For 27 years, my parents had gaslit me into believing I was overreacting. Not anymore. I hit the save video button, downloading the horrific footage directly to my phone's hard drive, and backed it up instantly to 2 different cloud servers. When I emerged from the bathroom, my face was a mask of perfect serenity. I smiled at Sarah, who gave me a questioning look. I simply gave her a subtle, almost imperceptible nod. Sarah's eyes widened, and a slow, fierce smile spread across her face. The trap had sprung. We finished at the salon and headed back to the house to get ready for the rehearsal dinner. My mother was chattering excitedly in the passenger seat about the floral arrangements for the church. I drove smoothly, my hands relaxed on the steering wheel. When we pulled into the driveway, my mother unlocked the front door and called out, "Morgan, we're home, how's your head, sweetie?" Morgan appeared at the top of the stairs. She was dressed in a casual sweater and leggings, looking the picture of innocence. "It's a little better, Mom," she called down, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "I just rested all day. Did you guys have fun?" "It was lovely," I said, my voice steady. "I'm just going to go up to my room and grab my dress for tonight." I walked up the stairs, my heart beating a slow, steady rhythm. Morgan stepped aside to let me pass in the hallway. As I walked by her, I caught the faint, unmistakable acrid stench of bleach clinging to her clothes. She smiled at me, a tight, expectant, predatory smile. She was waiting for the scream. She was waiting for the hysterical sobbing, the devastating breakdown that would effectively cancel my wedding and restore her to the center of attention. I walked into my bedroom. The smell of bleach hit me like a physical punch to the face. The fumes were thick and burning. I walked over to the open closet door and looked inside. The white garment bag was unzipped. Inside, the shredded, yellowing, chemically melted remains of the $50 synthetic decoy hung limply. Puddles of bleach soaked into the carpet. It looked like the scene of a violent, textile murder. I took a deep breath, composed myself, and turned around. I walked back out into the hallway. Morgan was leaning against the doorframe of her own bedroom, her arms crossed, waiting. "Hey, Mom," I called out, my voice completely flat, devoid of any emotion. "Can you come up here for a second?" My mother hurried up the stairs, slightly out of breath. "What is it, Ileana? Is something wrong?" She reached the top of the stairs and looked at me. Then she sniffed the air. "Good Lord, what is that awful smell? It smells like a swimming pool up here." I gestured toward my open bedroom door. "You should probably come look at this." My mother walked past me and into my room. Morgan followed closely behind her, unable to resist witnessing the spectacle she had orchestrated. I stayed in the hallway, watching them. My mother reached the closet door. She stopped dead. A strangled, horrifying gasp escaped her throat. Her hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock and terror as she took in the sight of the shredded, bleached gown. "Oh my God," my mother shrieked, her voice trembling. "Oh my God, Ileana, your dress, your beautiful $10,000 dress. What happened? Who did this?" Morgan immediately burst into theatrical tears. She threw her hands over her face, feigning absolute horror. "Oh my gosh, Ileana," she wailed, her voice echoing in the hallway. "Someone broke in. Someone must have broken in while I was sleeping and ruined it. This is awful. This is a disaster. Your wedding is ruined." My mother rushed back out to the hallway, tears streaming down her face, reaching out to hug me. I took a step back, holding my hands up to stop her. "I'm not crying, Mom," I said, my voice eerily calm. My mother stopped, confused. She looked at my dry eyes, my steady hands, my perfectly composed face. "Ileana, sweetie, you're in shock. Your beautiful dress is destroyed." "No, it's not," I replied. Morgan abruptly stopped her fake sobbing. She lowered her hands, staring at me with a bewildered expression. "What do you mean, no it's not?" "It's right there, shredded to pieces." I slowly reached into my purse and pulled out my iPad. I unlocked the screen and opened the saved video file. "The dress in that closet is a $50 synthetic knockoff I bought on Amazon," I explained, my voice echoing clearly in the silent hallway. "My actual $10,000 custom silk gown has been locked in a secure safe house across town for the last 2 weeks." I watched as the color rapidly drained from Morgan's face, replacing her fake concern with stark, horrifying realization. Her jaw dropped slightly. "I bought the decoy," I continued, turning the iPad screen toward them, "because I knew, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you would try to destroy it, Morgan. Just like you destroyed my prom dress. Just like you destroyed my laptop. Just like you try to destroy everything in my life that makes me happy." I hit play. The volume on the iPad was turned all the way up. The sound of the heavy fabric shears violently ripping through the polyester filled the hallway. My mother gasped again, stepping back as if she had been physically struck. She stared at the screen, watching in high-definition 4K as her oldest daughter violently, maliciously hacked away at what she believed was my wedding gown, her face twisted in a manic, joyful sneer, before pouring half a gallon of bleach over the remains. The video ended. The silence in the hallway was deafening, broken only by the distant sound of a car driving down the street outside. My mother slowly turned her head to look at Morgan. She looked like she was looking at a stranger. "Morgan," she whispered, her voice cracking with devastation. You did this. You tried to destroy your sister's wedding dress." Morgan was hyperventilating. The absolute, undeniable proof of her malice had completely short-circuited her brain. She couldn't gaslight her way out of a 4K video recording. She stammered, frantically backing away. "It's fake. That video is edited. I was just checking on it. I didn't mean to." "Save it," I snapped, my voice finally hardening into steel. "You thought you were destroying a $10,000 dress. You thought you were ruining my wedding. You intended to cause $10,000 worth of malicious property damage. I pulled my cell phone from my pocket and dialed 911. Ileana, what are you doing? My mother panicked, lunging forward to grab my arm. Don't, we can handle this as a family. Please, she's sick, she needs help, don't call the police. I ripped my arm away from my mother's grasp, glaring at her with years of pent-up resentment. Handling it as a family is what got us here, Mom. You let her get away with everything. I'm done playing by those rules. The operator answered. 911, what is your emergency? Yes, I said clearly, staring dead into Morgan's terrified eyes. I need to report a felony vandalism and destruction of property at my residence. I have the perpetrator on video, and they are currently on the premises. Morgan screamed, a primal guttural scream of absolute terror. She turned and tried to run toward the stairs, but Sarah, who had been quietly standing at the bottom of the staircase the entire time, had already locked the front door and was standing firmly in the way. The police arrived in less than 10 minutes. 2 officers walked through the front door, their hands resting on their utility belts, taking in the chaotic scene. My mother was sobbing hysterically on the couch. Morgan was huddled in the corner of the living room, rocking back and forth, screaming that I was a liar, that I set her up, that she was the victim. I calmly walked downstairs and handed the lead officer the iPad. Here is the footage, I told him. And here, I pulled a crisp, folded piece of paper from my purse and handed it to him. Is the original receipt for the dress she believed she was destroying. $10,000. In my state, malicious destruction of property valued over $1,000 is considered a felony. By providing the receipt for the dress she intended to destroy, and the fact that she believed she was destroying an item of that value to cause maximum financial and emotional damage, I was ensuring the charges would not just be a slap on the wrist. I explained to the officers the premeditated nature of her crime, the bleach she brought from downstairs, the scissors she stole from the sewing kit. I painted a clear, undeniable picture of a calculated, malicious attack. The officers watched the video, they looked at the receipt, they looked at the puddle of bleach upstairs, then they walked over to Morgan. Morgan, the taller officer said, his voice firm and authoritative, stand up, please. Put your hands behind your back. My mother shrieked, throwing herself between the officer and Morgan. No, please, she's my daughter. It's a misunderstanding. It's just a family fight. Ma'am, step aside, the officer warned sternly, gently moving my hysterical mother out of the way. We have video evidence of felony vandalism. We are making an arrest. I stood by the front door, my arms crossed, watching as the steel handcuffs clicked around Morgan's wrists. She wasn't fighting back anymore. She was completely, utterly broken. The reality of the situation had finally pierced through her delusion. She was sobbing, real, ugly tears of absolute defeat, the mascara running down her face in thick, black rivers. As they marched her past me toward the front door, she stopped and looked at me. Her eyes were filled with a mixture of hatred and profound, shaking fear. You're a monster, she spat at me, her voice trembling. I smiled. A genuine, radiant smile. Have a nice night, Morgan, I whispered. I have a rehearsal dinner to get to. The officers led her out the front door and pushed her into the back of the squad car. The red and blue lights flashed against the siding of my parents' house, a brilliant, beautiful light show to kick off my wedding weekend. My mother refused to attend the rehearsal dinner that night. She stayed home, frantically calling lawyers and bail bondsmen, trying to get her precious, malicious daughter out of a holding cell. I didn't care. Mark and I went to the dinner. I sat next to the man I loved, surrounded by friends and family who actually cared about me, and I ate an incredible plate of chicken parmesan, laughing and drinking champagne. I felt a weight, a heavy, toxic weight that I had carried for 27 years, finally lift off my shoulders. The next morning was my wedding day. I woke up in a luxurious hotel suite with Sarah and my bridesmaids. The sun was shining, the air was crisp, there was no tension, there was no walking on eggshells, there was no Morgan to complain about the breakfast catering or roll her eyes at my hair and makeup. 2 hours before the ceremony, Sarah drove to the safe house. She returned holding the heavy, opaque black garment bag. When she unzipped it in the bridal suite, a collective gasp echoed through the room. The dress was perfect. The heavy Italian silk shimmered in the natural light pouring through the windows. The intricate beadwork caught the sun, sparkling like crushed diamonds. When I stepped into it, and Sarah zipped up the back, I looked at myself in the full-length mirror and burst into tears. Not tears of fear or anxiety or stress, tears of pure, unadulterated joy. I looked beautiful. I looked triumphant. I walked down the aisle of that church feeling lighter than air. My father, who had spent the morning apologizing to me profusely for his years of blindness to Morgan's behavior, walked me down the aisle with tears in his eyes. When I reached the altar and took Mark's hands, I looked out at the congregation. My mother was sitting in the front row. She looked exhausted, her eyes red and puffy, but she managed a weak smile. And the seat next to her, the seat reserved for the maid of honor, my older sister, was completely, blessedly empty. I later found out that Morgan's lawyer couldn't secure a bail hearing until Monday morning. As I was standing at the altar exchanging vows with the love of my life, promising to love and cherish him forever, wrapped in $10,000 of pristine, flawless white silk, my older sister was sitting on a cold, metal bench in a county lockup holding cell, wearing a bright orange jumpsuit, smelling faintly of bleach and overwhelming regret. It was, without a single doubt, the happiest day of my entire life.